Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. This is going to be weird because normally I make eye contact with somebody on the audience, but I'm going to have to go like this and like this, which is going to be really awkward for all of us, but I'm going to do it anyhow. So I'm Tom Meckler. I'm the Regional Marketing Manager for Bosch for our Intrusion products, which means I'm the product guy for North America. I've been with the company. I was with us when we were radionics with the CS back in the 80s and 90s, and now I'm with us when we're radionics. There's a difference between X and X. It's a CS or an X. So for those of you who remember the radionics name, we're happy to bring back the brand. We're really excited about it. And we can do a lot of things with our intrusion systems. And this presentation is Intrusion Beyond Security. What that means is everybody can tell you if the burglar broke in. Why do we put in an intrusion system? The main reason is nobody's going to be here tonight. I'm going to lock it up. I'm going to turn on my alarm system. If the burglar breaks in, I want to know. Of course. Everybody wants to do that, right? But that intrusion system's sitting there all day, and it's monitoring doors, and it's monitoring motion detectors, and it's doing all kinds of things that you can take advantage of. Your intrusion system can do a lot more than just catch the burglar. And this is about some of the things we can do for commercial applications. We have a lot of commercial customers. Our G-Series panels are in over 1 million commercial applications. It's more than that, but I know I can go through the system and count 1 million. Not one at a time. It takes too long. I add them up. And so I can prove that we have over 1 million. I know it's more than that. So that means a lot. That's kind of cool. But what it means is we've talked to hundreds of thousands of commercial customers. So we solve their problems and say, hey, I have this issue. Is there something you can do to help us? So we build those things into our intrusion panels. And that's what this is all about. If you think about a commercial application, whether it's a big box store or it's a school or it's a bank or it's an office, there's a lot of things that these commercial applications have that are in common. One is multiple access points. Think about a typical big commercial building. There's lots of doors, there's lots of windows, there's lots of ways that somebody can get into that facility, and there's lots of different uses for those types of doors and whatever, so you have to protect them in different ways. There's times when that facility may be free, open to the public. People can just walk in. And there's times where they shouldn't, right? There's customers, there's clients, there's patients, there's students. Whoever they are, there's occupants of these buildings, and there's a lot of them. So there's people we have to protect. And there's different types of risk, and there's different risks, levels of risk, day and night. So if you think about that and you think about commercial applications, as I start to talk about some of these specific applications, keep those things in mind, because maybe all you do is K through 12 schools, and I'm talking about banks. Or all you do is government and federal applications, and I'm talking about schools. These facilities have similar needs and similar challenges, even though they might be completely different. What's this picture of? This, actually, you'll be glad to know, is the back door of our Fairport, New York facility with a brick stuck in it. Now, this door has an automatic closer, mechanical closer, right? So when you leave, you go out that door, the door's supposed to close behind you. Well, maybe you forgot your badge, or maybe you don't want to have to go all the way around to the front of the building, so you stick a brick in the door. So now, you don't have to use anything to get into the building. You don't have to use anything to get into the building, and neither does anybody else, because that door, that perimeter door, is propped open. Think about that in a business or a school. My daughter is an elementary music teacher. As we speak, she's standing in front of a bunch of maybe second graders or even kindergartners teaching music. I don't want any of the doors in the school she's in right now to be propped open, because I don't want anybody walking in there. How can you guard against that? Well, if you're familiar with access control systems have a feature called door propped. So they can tell that the door's been propped open, right? That's pretty cool. But not all doors are part of the access control system, and not all buildings have an access control system. Our intrusion panels, radionics, I almost said Bosch. We've been Bosch for 25 years, so I'm trying to get back into the radionics swing of things. Our radionics intrusion panels have a feature called monitor delay and delay response. And what it allows us to do is take that contact that's connected to the door, which you're going to put as part of the burglar alarm system. So I arm the system at night, somebody breaks in that door, I get an alarm. Well, we can use that contact during the day to see if the door's been propped open. We can put a timer on the door if the system is disarmed. If that door is open anywhere from 1 minute to 60 minutes, we can activate a local alert, we can send a text, we can do all those types of things that tell you that the door has been propped open. So you go and you close the door. And it sounds like a really, really simple thing, but if you think of any commercial facility, every manager who's managed a commercial building has had this problem at some point. And it's just simple. Just close the darn doors. If that door is closed, the level of security on your perimeter is much higher than obviously if it isn't. Other ways, these other doors, protecting emergency doors. I didn't tell the story, man. I usually tell the story, but I don't know, I got 38 minutes. I don't know if I could tell all the stories. 39? I'll tell the next story. So, emergency doors. These are the dine and dash doors, right, in a restaurant. So you have to have these emergency doors throughout a facility because if there's a fire, if there's some other emergencies and people need to exit, you don't want them to have to go all the way to the front. You want them to get out the closest door. So department stores and warehouses and offices, and our building in Fairport have doors in the building that nobody's ever supposed to use unless there's an emergency. Now, I'm old enough to remember when we had these Detex boxes. Anybody remember Detex? All right, so they had these Detex boxes, and you press the door handle, and it said, "Do not open door, alarm will sound," right? And it had a row of D-cell batteries in this thing, and it make a sound as long as the D-cell batteries weren't dead, which would never happen, right? Well, now we do that as part of the alarm system. We can program a point that says local well disarmed, which means that if somebody opens the door during the day, you're going to ring a siren, but you're not going to send a report to the central station. And that's so that they can utilize these emergency doors, but that they're protected so that nobody just walks out the back of the restaurant without paying. Or my story about this, and Matt, you're going to have to rein me in, you know how these things go, is I had a friend who owned one of these play centers. They got a pirate ship in there, and bless you, and some little cars, and the kids can come play during the day. It's just basically a big warehouse. So you want to keep track of the kids, so you only have one entrance, and the one entrance is over there. But if there's a fire or something, you want them to be able to get out. So there's an emergency exit over there. And beyond the emergency exit are railroad tracks. So over there's a door, and it's an emergency door, and beyond the door are the railroad tracks. Every once in a while, some kid who's almost too old enough to be in the play center, and he's starting to get a little naughty, decides he's going out that door to see if the alarm really will sound. Well, guess what? It will. So you got a kid going out, he opens the door, the sirens go off. So you're 5. You open the door, and sirens go off. What do? You start crying. You're 3, and you're in a building where sirens are going off. What do? You start crying. So this kid opens the door, and there's 50 kids screaming. So my buddy's got to decide, I'm either going to go close the door, or I'm going to go up here to the keypad, and I'm going to silence the siren. Well, what he did was he actually put in a wireless key fob. So on his way to grab the kid and close the door, he could silence the alarm. So he killed 2 stones with 1 bird. So again, that door is there, A, to keep people from running out, keep the kids from running out into the railroad tracks, keep the burglars out. But he was actually able, I did it for him, he really didn't do it. He was able to find a creative way to silence that alarm on his way to it. So again, it's another way to protect a door in a commercial application, emergency doors. So let's say you got that emergency door, and we'll just use Daniel's example again. And You have a real emergency, and somebody's got to get out the door, and there's a pallet of boxes in front of the door. They can't get out the door. It might be an emergency exit, but it ain't an exit because nobody can get out. That's a code violation. And the very first example of our using our cameras with VCA, with video content analysis, integrated with our intrusion panels, was for a big, really, really big retailer with a W at the beginning of their name, but I won't tell you who it was. But it's the biggest retailer with a W in the beginning of their name. And it's also our biggest customer, but I won't tell you who they are. They had this problem where regularly fire marshals would come in and there'd be a stack of boxes or a pallet in front of their emergency doors, and the fire marshal would write them up. The first time he'd write them up and yell at them. The second time he'd write them up and give them a citation. And the third time he would threaten to close the store, which is bad. Well, our cameras have the ability to detect object left behind. So they can look in front of that door. I'm looking down here. They can look in front of that door, and they can see that the floor of the door is clear, or it's not. If it's not, an object has been left behind. That's great. The camera can activate an alert. Well, the camera can also integrate with our alarm panel. And when it integrates with our alarm panel, it can activate a point on the panel, which then can tell the system to make some noise or send a text or do all those things that a panel does when something bad has happened. It texts the store manager, the emergency door is blocked, they move the offending boxes, and the problem goes away. It's another thing that we can do. And with that, we talked earlier about efficiency in your business. This is a way to keep your business efficient and safe at the same time. That feature that I put on the door with the brick, that tells you that the door's been open too long. Well, we can put a timer on that to run anywhere from a second to 60 minutes. Well, for a door that a person's walking through, 2 or 3 minutes is probably enough, right? It's pretty rare for a door to be open for 2 to 3 minutes. They're moving something in, they're doing something, but normal operation, the door, maybe even a minute is too long. But an overhead door could be open 45, 50 minutes, right? So if I have an overhead door, I want to be able to open that for longer than that 2 or 3 minutes, but I also don't want to leave it open. And another retailer, a big home improvement store with an L in their name, and I'm not going to tell you who they are either, they contacted us and said, we're losing about $1 million a year in heating, ventilating, and air conditioning costs because our guy on the dock is leaving the door open longer than they should be. Now, if all he would do is close the door, then we wouldn't be throwing money out onto our dock in the form of air conditioning. Can you help us? So we can use that feature to monitor the door to see if it's been open too long. And if it's been open, they said 45 minutes. So if it's been open 46 minutes, send a text to the store manager so they can come close the door. Or if they're emptying a big truck, reset it and run it for another 45 minutes and come back later. And in the same system, we can have a person door that's 2 minutes and an overhead door that's 45 minutes. We could do it at the same time. So that's pretty cool. So again, we're adding efficiency, we're adding security, because if that door's open, the bad guy could just walk into your building through the dock. And when, I hope I'm planting some seeds, folks, it may or may not be true that almost everything I'm talking about is only available in a radionics panel. So if you're selling these features and you're talking to your commercial customers, you're the only one that's doing it if you're selling our product, and you're going to win the sale because your competitors are not. Because they're going to ask you to come in and catch the burglar. And you and all of your competitors are going to say, here's how I'm going to catch the burglar. But you're going to come in and say, oh, by the way, do you ever have this problem? Do you ever have that problem? I can solve that for you too at no extra charge. So you're going to win applications because you can sell these features that your competitors are not selling. Protecting high value and sensitive merchandise. So another retailer came to us and said their problem was the jewelry counter. So you got this 18-year-old kid and the daughter that was, that's the teacher, she was one of these kids, working in a jewelry, or in a big box store, and in the middle, because it's really smart to put the most expensive stuff unprotected in the middle of your store. So that's where they put the jewelry counters. Why do they do it? I don't know. Anyhow, the 18-year-old kid's working at the jewelry counter. This lady comes up and she says, I'd really like to see that bracelet. So the 18-year-old kid walks over, opens up the cabinet, takes the little packet or the drawer of bracelets over and brings it over to the lady and leaves the cabinet open and the drawer open, and her accomplice waits and reaches over and grabs the watches because the drawer's been open. And it would happen all the time. And when I talk to, can I say Tiffany's? I better not. When I talked to one major jewelry company and I told them we could do this, they couldn't believe it. Oh my God, this is a real problem for us. Put a door contact on the back of that drawer. Put a 5-minute or a 1-minute or a 2-minute timer on it. If the clerk leaves the thing open too long, you get a notification. And they close the drawer and all is well. So that helps reduce shrink. So now we're reducing shrink. We're helping people reduce their HVAC costs. We're keeping them safe just with a simple little feature. The other one is food safety. So now my daughter's a teacher. My wife works in a school. And I'm blessed that I didn't know this until I had family members working in schools. But there's a whole lot of kids who their last meal on a Friday is lunch at school. And their next meal is the breakfast that they get on Monday. And imagine you're running the kitchen in a school and you get in on a Monday morning and your freezer failed on Saturday and you got to throw away all the food. You got to throw away all the food and you can't feed those kids. Or it's a grocery store. You got to throw away all the food and you're just throwing away $10,000. That's a problem. Well, they have systems that monitor these freezers and such, and they'll make a bunch of noise if the freezer goes over temperature, but what if nobody's there to hear the noise? Connect that system to our system, and then we can report that for you, and someone will respond before the food spoils, before you have to throw it away. So that means the kid gets breakfast, and that means the grocery store manager doesn't have to throw away their food. Loitering. Loitering is basically somebody's hanging out someplace they ain't supposed to be for longer than they should be. And our cameras can detect that. So our cameras can detect a person, and they can detect a person has been in this area for too long. And you can decide how long too long is based upon the application, right? I like the way when I put this red box, how dangerous this guy's shadow looked. You know, he's hanging out behind this building and he's loitering. Well, our cameras can detect that. And imagine you're a camera and you're looking back over the playground of a school, or you're looking over the front area of a parking lot, and there's somebody hanging out there, and it ain't time for somebody to be hanging out there. There's 1,000 kids inside this school, and there's some guy walking around the back lot. Well, the camera can detect that, activate a point on the alarm system, then we can notify somebody to go see what's going on. The retail application is my store is closed, and I have a camera on the front of the store. And during the day, I'm supposed to look for cars driving too fast or parked in the fire lane or somebody fell or pretended they fell. Nobody's ever done that. And I'm supposed to look for all that stuff. But during the night, I'm still looking. I can look for people. And if somebody's hanging out in front of my store at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's probably because they want to break the window and come in and help themselves to some watches. Not that that's ever happened. So the camera can detect that, and it can make a decision. I see a person here, and then if it sees that person at a time they're not supposed to be there, can activate the intrusion panel, which can then play a message, maybe, hey, thank you, I'm glad you're interested, please come back during business hours. Something to that effect to scare them away. And then if they don't go away, then we escalate it, we send an alert. What's cool about this is it allows you to stage it, and then because of the intelligence of the alarm system, it allows you to decide if you should do something or not. So if the store is open, and someone walks up to the store, you don't want to scare them away, right? Easy. So if the system is disarmed, then you ignore the fact that somebody's loitering out in front of your store. If the system is armed, you act upon it. Very, very simple logic, but really, really elegant when you tie these two systems together. Open the areas you need, secure the ones you don't. We have the ability to arm and disarm up to 32 different areas independently of one another, and that gives you a lot of security and capabilities as well. So let's say this mega store here has multiple areas. Some people call these things partitions. And I'm the manager of the mega store. And it's time to open up the store. I walk in the back door. I want to disarm everything I can disarm. When I enter my passcode at one keypad, it disarms everything. The main floor, the cash office, where we keep the iPhones, all that stuff. In one fell swoop, I just enter my passcode and boop, disarms. But let's say that I'm an assistant manager and I'm not supposed to disarm the sensitive areas like the high value, the cash office, where we keep the phones and all that kind of stuff. When I enter my passcode, those areas don't disarm, but the other main areas disarm. Okay? Let's say it's not a mega store. Let's say it's a bank. I'm the manager of the bank. I have access to the whole bank. I can go anywhere I want. But when I disarm at the back of the bank, I don't want the vault to disarm. I want the vault to disarm when I'm standing at the vault. We can do that. So the story of this slide is really the flexibility that we have with our systems. So you can control the entire system, all 32 areas, from one keypad. You can control each area individually from 32 keypads, and any combination in between. Whatever makes sense for your customer, we can support. Panic buttons, another way. That's not my daughter, but if it was, she'd be able to carry a panic button so that if something happens, you notice something, you have a real problem, you press that panic button, we can actually do multiple things. Because we have this feature called custom functions, a custom function allows us to take an action and do multiple things with it. What do I mean by that? Well, if I press the panic button, I want somebody to come help me. So I press the panic button, we send a panic alarm to the monitoring station, police are on their way. If we have a bad situation in a school or a building, I want to do an emergency lockdown or a hold in place. I want to signal that. So I can activate some relays or I can lock some doors that automatically lock the doors. I can do that automatically based upon that panic button activation. If I'm in that school, I want other people to know that the situation is going on, and sometimes there's a code. Joe Smith, please come to the office, means that we have a lockdown, for example. I can trigger that special message. So there's 3 things that I've done from one action from that panic button. And I could do 3 more, but since I'm old, I can't think of them. Trust me, we can do it though. But panic buttons, and then tied into these custom functions that allow us to do with one button, lock down the building, ask for help, play a message, whatever you need to do. So we're there even when you're not. And I talk about all this fancy stuff and all this extra stuff, which is really important. And sometimes I forget to talk about we can catch the burglar too. So we have a very secure, very reliable alarm system. We have the best motion detectors in the industry. I would love to show them to you if you stop over afterwards. It's actually, the sun seems like it's coming out, which is very nice. Maybe we can turn off the heat. But we have lots of different ways to protect that building from a burglar alarm standpoint as well. So how do you control your system? I talked about arming and disarming from the keypad. We also have a brand new app. If you're familiar with our intrusion systems, you might be familiar with the Bosch Security Manager app, which is a smartphone app that you could use on your iPhone, your Android, etc. Bosch Security Manager has been replaced by Remote Security Manager. This dropped on Friday. It's brand new. It gives you a new user interface, new capabilities. So this allows someone who's managing multiple systems to manage them from their smartphone. And somebody asked me, well, how many? We don't know, but it's certainly hundreds. We don't think there's a limit. So if you are the person responsible for this school district, and somebody forgets to arm the school that's on the other side of town and it's during rush hour, you can just bring out your smartphone and arm that school from your couch, or disarm it if somebody can't get in. So the ability to arm and disarm the system, control specific areas, so you can arm and disarm just a part of it. You can bypass points. You get push notifications, so of course the signal is going to go to the monitoring center, but you also get a push notification. You can add or delete passcodes from here. So this person's no longer with the company or no longer with the district. I want to take them out. I want to take out their code. I don't have to go someplace and do that. I can just pull out my smartphone and take them out. Lock or unlock doors and access live camera views. This is a view. If you're used to BSM, this will mean something to you because these are new screens and it looks a little different. It's easier to operate the system. Now you can silence alarms from the app, which is a new feature, which is pretty cool. So it really gives you full control. So if y'all want to grab your phones and look at that QR code, please do so. If not, just come over and I'll show it to you over there. But we have a new app, so if you're familiar with our panels, and you're familiar with the BSM app, the Bosch Security Manager app, I'm very excited to introduce the Remote Security Manager app. We've done a lot of improvements. You're really going to like it. So the question is, can you get the door held open events into BVMS? And for those of you who don't know, so we can integrate directly with our cameras, as I mentioned before. We can also take our intrusion panels and they can integrate into BVMS. So that allows you to take an event that happens in the panel and cause some event to action, like bring up the camera. So if you get the door has been propped open event, then you can bring up the camera that's looking at that door so you can actually see what's going on, and maybe you'll see in time who propped it open, those kinds of things. So the answer to your question is yes. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time and your coming down today.
Thank you, Tom.